Do you ever wonder why some homes you walk into feel really pulled together, warm and cozy and inviting, and others don't? Well, some of that has to do with the color palette. And I'm going to teach you a few easy rules about color theory. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you why you should throw out all those rules and you don't really need to learn them anyway. Designers like to make color sound a lot more complicated than it is, so I'm going to give you a few basic terms. Hue just means color. Tint is when you take the hue and you add a little bit of white to it. Tone is when you take the color and you add a little bit of gray to it. And shade is when you take the color, hue, and add a little bit of black to it. There are three main kinds of color palettes that you can make for any room. And the first one is going to be a monochromatic color. And that means all the colors in the room are pretty much one color. Different textures, maybe a different sheen, but they're pretty much the same color. And that doesn't only happen in a neutral room. Here's an example of a neutral room that's monochromatic. And here's an example of a really colorful room that is all different shades of green. The second kind of color palette is called a complementary color palette. And what that means is you use two colors that are on opposite sides of the color wheel. That can be a blue and an orange, like this room, or a red and a green, or really any color on the color wheel, as long as you use one for one side, a cool side and a warm side. And the third kind of color palette is called analogous. And what that means is you use three different colors that are on the same side of a color palette. Like this example of a room that is blue, violet, and purple. But you could use any colors as long as you're picking three that are close together. Now, why am I going to tell you you don't need to know any of that? Because the color wheel is an overwhelming thing to start with if you're trying to decorate. The easiest thing to do is pick something that inspires you, like a fabric or a wallpaper or a rug. And the reason you don't need color theory is because the fabric you're using or the rug you're using, it already has a mix of colors in it that someone who knows a lot about color theory has used because they're making 1,000 yards of this fabric. So they've already picked out colors that go together. So all you have to do is pick out a piece of fabric that you really love and use that to build your room's color palette around, and leave the color theory out of it. If you're interested in more color shortcuts, I've got another video about 4 hacks to set the color palette in any room.